Welcome to the Fight for Our Citizens podcast. I'm your host, Matone, Uncle Fox. I'm back again with my Uncle Wendsler. Uncle, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm good to be back with you.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you got time to fit this in because I know you're going to go on this prayer journey coming up. So just want to get back on some of the things that we were talking about in the last episode. Where we left off was you as chairman, but I wanted to also get back on to let people know about the Mount Graham situation that happened when you went up there and was trying to give blessings on the mountain and was arrested. So we just wanted to elaborate on that and see, what happened and what was the outcome on that.
Oh man, that's gonna take me back some years. So let me sit here.
Yeah.
I guess I'm always saying about being honest and really knowing what you're saying, especially when you're sharing things to your family and those around you, and in this case, like your audience, and it may sound a lot different than many other people, but as I was saying to you in the last interview, how I grew up and how things were for me, and a lot of things bothered me. I had my sunrise dance for my daughter Vanessa, and during the time of her dance, it just felt like some things were going wrong, and there was a lot of questions that I was questioning myself as a father, and what these ceremonies mean to me, from the day she was born to the day of the ceremony and what it's going to be after, and those things play an everyday part of my life, not just for me but for our community and in the spirit world. So anyway, now here comes my daughter Alicia, just kind of looking at where maybe I went wrong. It was really important for me about these sacred places, where our deities and our angels come from.
Yes.
And it was, again, I got to go back to my mother all the time, because having somebody like her that knew about the past and where she came from and what things were like, and then on my father's side, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then for some reason I just kind of started looking at the mountains, and then the strange thing was my wife Teresa started having dreams, and she was telling me that I needed to go to the mountain to pray. I needed to go to the mountain and pray.
Mm-hmm.
So that dream came like 3 times, to her. Once it started, it was consistent, and on the third day she told me, hey, I just dreamt again that you need to go to the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of put things in perspective that maybe that's where I need to go, because of the things that were bothering me, and just looking at how things were. And at that time we were also, at that time fighting for Mount Graham, and a lot of the elders that are no longer here were alive, and a lot of the religious stories and things that they experienced and their parents had experienced, with these holy places, So being that my wife was dreaming, I and the reason why I didn't listen to her right away, because my wife is Navajo, so so I was like, hey, wait a minute, this is Apache country, and she's having these dreams of her sacred sites, sacred places, and so anyway, I thought, no, I better listen to her. So what was unusual was that I was by myself, and I'm normally with her or my children, and here I was, leaving the reservation, going all the way to Mount Graham, because beyond Bylas, the reservation ends there. And then hit the town of Pima, Thacker, and Safford, and up the mountain. So when I got there, I was just below the refugium, like about 9,000 feet, or 9,500 feet. And so I brought out my medicine stuff, that I was going to pray. But what was really odd was all of a sudden there was a young white lady behind me.
Yeah.
And she says to me, excuse me. So I turned around, and she says to me, are you an Apache? And I said, yeah, I'm Apache. And then she goes, wow. She goes, this is your sacred and holy place. And I said, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then she says to me, are you going to go to the top and pray? And that was never my intention to go to the top. I was ready where I had put my stuff up. And I guess that's kind of where being a man sometimes, being tough and whatever, I looked at her and I said, yeah, I'm going to go to the top.
Yeah.
So I had to,
like it was a challenge or something.
Yeah. So I had to collect my stuff, and so I start making my way, and every time I turn around, like every time I made a good climb and I turned around, she was still behind me. She was following me. So I was like, oh man, when's she gonna leave? You know, so I
Yeah.
could pray right here. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But before I know it, I was at the very top of the mountain, and she was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I laid up my stuff, and once I started to pray, um, man, I remember clear as day the way the clouds came in. They came in really fast and
Mm-hmm.
really quick. And I was taught that when clouds, locos, in Apache, when they sit above the mountains, it's time, that you couldn't be there, because that's when the spirit people would walk the earth.
Yes.
So I was trying to hurry and pray, and before I know it, man, it was just like lighting like crazy. So I
Mm-hmm.
just everything was red. I just remember, and I was really frightened by it, because I never
Yeah.
been in the center of any kind of lightning, especially that high up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I quickly, got my stuff, and by the time the clouds were in, I could just see as far as how you stick out your hand, to
Mm-hmm.
the end of your palm, as far as I could see. And so I was trying to make my way down, and man, it was like, I'll never forget that feeling of a lot of uncertainties, and which way am I going? Am I lost? Am I going to
Mm-hmm.
get hit by lightning? And before I know it, just kind of cleared up for a second, and I jumped off this ridge, and I jumped onto a dirt road.
Yeah.
And that's when the University of Arizona Police, the U.S. Forest Service, and the sheriff, they were all there, and that's when I got arrested.
Yeah.
And they held me, they had me lay over the hood and held me
Mhm.
down, and then they incarcerated me for the whole day, because that kind of happened like around, I say about 8 o'clock. So
Yeah.
I was in their custody till about 4. Just halfway down the mountain, they have a building, a little tin building there.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. So anyway, they from there, they're going to take me in their vehicle down to the mountain. But I told them, I said, hey, I got my truck here, so they escorted me down with my truck. And then when we got
Mhm.
down to the bottom of Mount Graham, they cited me. They gave me my papers to appear in court.
Mhm.
And I will never forget the sheriff person telling me, hey, don't ever come back here, just like your people.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, I'm like, what?
Mhm.
And I heard him clearly. He says, don't ever come back here like your people.
Wow.
And then I looked, and just again being a young man, because at that time I was like about 32 years old.
Mhm.
I'm 65 now, but I looked at him, and I looked at all of them, and I said, no, I'll be back.
Yeah.
And I drove home, and I was like, I couldn't even explain to myself what just happened, because I
Mhm.
never,
Kind of in shock.
Yeah, I never
Yeah.
been arrested. I never done anything wrong as a kid.
Mhm.
I never, never had to deal with any kind of police
enforcement,
law
yeah.
enforcement. Yeah, I never. And I was just like, how do I explain this? What? So I remember I came home, got home, and my wife asked me, how did it go? And I
Mhm.
really didn't want to talk, and I
Mhm.
just told her, I said, well, we got to go get wood in Porcupines tomorrow. I'm just going to go to sleep. So
Yeah.
I went to sleep, and we got up early in the morning, and her and I, we took off to Porcupine. We worked all day. We
Mhm.
got the wood for the sunrise dance that we're getting ready for,
Mhm.
and came back, and I was unloading, and then my wife tells me, hey, we didn't even eat, are you okay?
Mhm.
And I didn't say anything to her. Then at the end I just said, is there enough food? We can go over to my mother and have her eat with us. And she goes, no, there's plenty of food. We didn't even eat. And
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay. So after we unloaded, we went over to my mother's, and as my wife Teresa and my mother was preparing the food that we had,
Mhm.
she came back, and she sat down and looked at me, and she says, hey son, I've been feeling sick all since yesterday. She says, I've been feeling sick, but I know you're going to heal me.
Mhm.
So I set up, of course, your mom tells you
Yeah.
you're sick,
Right.
So I set up, and I was looking at her, and then the part when she says, I know, you're going to heal me.
Mhm.
Now I looked at her, and I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, I need to tell you something. She says, I dreamed the other night. She goes, I was on this mountain with these pine trees, the real tall trees, and there were these police people were around me, but this one white lady, she had her gun pointing at me, and but beyond them there was a man standing there shaking, scared, and just shaking.
Mhm.
And I yelled at that man, pray, pray. And then I looked at the white lady, and I told her, go ahead and shoot me. And then, so by then I'm sitting up looking at her, and then she looked at me. She goes, "All I want to know from you is that did you get done praying?"
Mm.
Oh man, you talking about
Wow.
just crying,
Yeah.
because I told nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew what happened. Nobody. And I looked at her and I said, "No, I got done praying."
Mm-hmm.
Then she was, "Okay, now I feel better." That's kind of like what the old people had. They had those kind of really powers of visions, and by just praying, and,
Right.
and being faithful to what God created the world to be. And not just my mother. A lot of people are like that. That used to be like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say used to, because those people were like came from the 1920s.
Oh yeah.
And they were raised by the people in the 1800s.
Mm.
And they knew. They knew their prayers. They knew everything, and they could sense things. And but anyway, so.
When did everybody start to find out that you were detained?
Well, of course, Stafford, hit the media with it, and I was arrested, and
Yeah.
it became a big story, and so I went to trial. I sat there, and I just remember them asking me, well, why'd you go there? Why were you there? And I kept telling them that, that we had visions, and I was to go there, and something was calling me, and this is what happened, And so they kept asking me, well, if God calls you again, will you go? And I said, of course, and so anyway, so we went into recess, and so people were, well, not people, but they were telling me that be ready to serve about 300 days in jail for trespassing into the refugium where the United States owns the top of Mount Graham.
Right.
And just be ready, and that they'll fight for the appeals and so forth. And so we waited, and all of a sudden my attorney came down, and William Foreman, and told me that I was acquitted, and again, and it hit the papers that they let me
I
go.
seen the paper.
Yeah, and so, but about, I think just a little over a year after that is when the prosecutor in Safford told my attorney that he got calls from Washington and down, right down the line from the Forest Service to dismiss the case.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told my attorney that he didn't even want to prosecute me in the first place because I was there praying, And so again, he told my attorney that, they did not want to deal with the religious aspects of it.
Yeah.
And that it would be, really denying our religious rights or religious, to exercise our rights. And so I was acquitted. And that's how, the Mount Graham for me at 32 years old, that definitely changed my life. And,
Right.
and it no longer became mine. It became the work that I'm doing today, to save these places and know that there's a lot of things are going wrong behind the scenes. And so that's what really, as my son would put it, that really put his father on his journey.
Yeah. And it seemed like it was more like a scare tactic too they were trying to do to you. Like, if we scare this guy, he's gonna not come back. And I think maybe that was one of them. And then another thing was you're never by yourself. I mean, hardly by yourself. And then so I was surprised when you did go up there that you were by yourself, because most of the time you're not by yourself. So they must have really been watching you from the bottom of the mountain, all the way through until you got to the top. Because I always remember like, he's by himself, because I usually take somebody with them. But yeah, they waited for you. You had to. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely, I really think so, because I didn't, at that point too, we didn't know how much was at stake. And what was at stake was, I guess nobody never really broke reservation lines. Everybody was incarcerated in San Carlos, and we were learn that this is where we're from. You vacated all these areas, kind of blaming us that we left these areas.
Yeah.
And then grooming the next generation to not let them know that they're from these important areas. And so anyway, I guess by the prayers taking me out there really broke, I always say reservation line broke me as a person.
Yeah.
That I can't be held anymore, to these reservation boundaries, that there's more to our life, than what it is. But like you said, they were really watching this mountain, because what people don't understand is that when the United States took over, there's areas that they proclaim and put their U.S. signs, that it's theirs and nobody to enter these places. And Mount Graham, like Oak Flats, holds a lot of traditional, historical uh, items, and then it also plays a big part in our religious ways too.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they can keep us away from it, then what happens to the next generation is they no longer respect these places, and they just look at it as a mound that has a snow on top,
Yeah.
and not know that our deities, reside in these areas.
Yeah.
So it was really a big eye opener. Then I knew, at that point I knew it was bigger, because when we talk about exemptions, when the United States gives exemptions to federal laws, that's kind of like where it really began, because the University of Arizona, were given again a full exemption
Mm-hmm.
from the laws. And so what that means is that for Native peoples, or for Apaches, is our history is completely washed.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as they're exempting laws that means that even though we got all the artifacts, we got burial grounds, we got everything there, when the United States does this, that means that we don't have anything anymore.
Right. And we talked this before, but remember, Mount Graham wasn't an ideal spot for that telescope. I mean, there was other better places when I read in the newspaper and I was telling you about, but again, it had to deal with money, probably had to deal with Safford getting money, had to deal with a lot of people getting money to put that on Mount Graham, because there's other spots they could put it at other than Mount Graham, but they chose Mount Graham because I think probably capitalism again, just like Oak Flat is capitalism, and so they chose Mount Graham, even though they know it's not a good spot. And then, like you said, that when it started, because that's the first time I ever heard where they could bypass endangered species laws. There was a lot up there at Mount Graham too, and now at Oak Flat, and they're just bypassing all that endangered species stuff.
Yeah, and I tell people that what you got to realize that America is an illusion, and you got to really understand what America is about.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, you come back to what colonization and what corporations and how they exist and where do they fit and how do they fit, and all those are real critical things to understand and learn. Because let's go back to Mount Graham again. So they were supposed to build 32 telescopes on top of Mount Graham, and that's what was awarded to them. I know we have some idiots that go around and say, "Oh, the Apache's lost, they got telescope." Yeah. No, they're supposed to be 32 telescopes.
There's not 32.
There's not 30. There's only 3, and that's where the elders, before me, really worked very hard. And when I was young, that's when they sent me overseas. I mean, I was speaking at a lot of different colleges, and also going to the University of Max Planck, the government of Bonn, Germany, and Italy. But not just me. A lot of people went from San Carlos, and so we were able to stop them funding these telescopes that we're going to build.
Yes.
And I got to tell you something that I guess. Well, now I could say it's not going to go to my grave with me.
Yeah.
But my wife and I, what happened was that we got invited to speak in New York, and it was strange. Everything, back then, it's not like today where you have your cell phones, you have, your Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. It wasn't like that. So communication was, far from what it is. And so we, I got a call and everything. Come to New York. We got all this taken care of for you. You'll be able to talk, and it's a big part of stopping the telescopes. And so here my wife and I, we got ready, went down to Phoenix, got the plane, we went down to, landed in New York, and it was pretty cool. A guy with a sign with my name, and took us to a black nice car. We went to our hotel, and then they told us, be ready at this certain time in the evening, and they're going to take us to where we need to be. And so being silly at that time and not realizing, anything, I guess, like how big this picture is.
Yeah.
We get ready. My wife's wearing her traditional stuff, and I am too. And we go there, and man, it was like how you see in the movies, all these rich people, women with gowns on and pretty, and guys with hats and sticks,
Yeah.
And we walk in, and we were like an eyesore, and everybody was like really stared at us,
Yeah.
And then this guy walks up to us and tells my wife and I, go to this table, get something to drink. And then I'll come back, So we walk through everybody, we, go sit at the table where our name was at. And then all of a sudden, about like 5 minutes, the guy comes again. He goes, "Come on, kid, let's go over here now." So we were walking, And he takes us to the door that we came in, and now we're outside. Then he goes, go ahead and go down to the limo. There would be back in your room, you got, something, you need to take a look at it. So now me and my wife are stunned, like, what?
Yeah.
So we get in the car and we take us back to our room.
Hotel, yeah.
Hotel, and so there's a note there and tells us to go to the airport, pack our stuff, go to the airport, and you're flying home tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, what?
Yeah.
We just got here, this morning, and then now we're getting like a red eye out of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife and I were really confused, like, what just happened, So here we are, we're flying home, and we get home, and it's just like this never happened. It's like a dream, like it was just weird. So finally, I get a visit, and what I found out was, out of the 32 telescopes that was going to be built, one was going to be a laser built by the United States Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things the United States was working on was the first one that has lasers will control the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had plans to put a fake telescope up there that is lasers. And I said, why here? Like you're saying, there's other places that I could have gone, but why here? And it come to find out that, in Tucson is where they're developing lasers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need to protect Tucson. And not only protect in Tucson, but the fact that they can play with the weather, and they were saying that they could heat up and also not heat up places of where there's enemies, but also shoot down, what do you call it, rockets or whatever coming. Yeah, so
satellites.
But right in the middle of the whole thing was a military movement, and so that's one thing that's really hard to try to explain to the people, because they're always the assumption that it's America's great, America's fair, America will tell you. No, they're not going to tell you anything. So I'm really proud of the elders who are no longer here, those and all those kids and everybody who fought, because we stopped. We stopped something that could have been tragic, to the rest of the world.
Right.
And to have the United States dominate in that way would be unfair, because just the way our attitude as Americans, it's really not a good attitude that we have, and we threaten everybody. And you could just imagine what these other countries would feel. Yeah. But again, getting back to your point, man, there's a lot more to a lot of these things that are going on in the world.
It seemed like when you get arrested and you going all over the country, it kind of put Mount Graham in the spotlight, and that's bad for probably the United States when that happened. That you put that whole Mount Graham on a spotlight where the whole world was looking. I mean, everybody was looking at the article of Mount Graham. So I'm probably sure that that's where, you disrupted everything there. So they tried to get you over there into New York, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's probably how Mount Graham got put a spotlight on. It's also deals with the same thing with Oak Flat, how I got, just spotlight on Oak Flat now. So, but that's the thing I was going to talk to you about too, Uncle, was like, I always get a lot of feedback about, when you were chairman, there's some things that you could have done to help Oak Flat when you were chairman, but now that you're not chairman, now you're helping Oak Flat. But again, when I do my research and everything, you were talking about Oak Flat as chairman, and that this shouldn't happen. But again, this bill got passed in the overnight rider, that there's no way. I always say there's no way we could have stopped the overnight rider like that in the defense bill that's like I don't know how many pages long, and again by Arizona senator, by Arizona congressmen, by all these ones that are here in the state. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is like, what was the negative side of being in the child politics, and what you really can't do as chairman when it comes to these kind of things that the state are going after?
Well, I guess like everybody else, it was a dream, and then became a reality from the people who elected me to council, and just the honor of that, And I remember telling my family and, especially my mother, because again, like I said, for the listeners, my father passed when I was 7. So my mother, I would tell her, man, I'm like one step away from being chairman of the tribe. But she would always, bring it into perspective and say, that's not what you're there for. This is what you're here for. You got to learn your district, you got to learn your people, and more so, you got to know who you are.
Yeah.
And be truthful about what you can and what you can't do. And never lie to the people, and never lie to yourself. If you lie to yourself, you're going to lie to the people. And so those were really fundamental tools that were important for me and to be reminded as a leader. So when I was on the council, and then I was saying before where I got off council, then I came back again, and that was around 2021. And people were meeting because they heard something was going to happen. And of course, I got invited from one of the medicine men, and I went down, and that's when they were talking about rumors that they heard that there's a possibility that there could be a new mine coming, and it would be in our sacred place again, and that these companies might be talking to our tribal leadership. And so again, some of the older people came to me and said, Wendsler, you got to get back in there, because we have to protect the future, because it's not going where it should go. And again, those people were like, they're gone now,
Yeah.
And
Right.
so anyway, I made my way back again to tribal council. So when I came in, the council was in a position very close to continue being met with the mining people. But it was so cool because the numbers were growing. I mean, it was like a rally, down at the river, and
Right.
the gym was packed with people that were opposing, what was going to happen at Old Flats. And so one late evening, I brought a resolution to the floor, which actually was really helped developed by community members. The community members were behind us, and we brought it to the floor, and it passed, barely, that the tribe will defend its water, the people, the land, and what God had blessed us with. And so when we did that is when we began to feel the pressure from the United States government. That's when they were really upset. And so with some council and some leadership that we had, they really didn't know how it worked, because, we're always being, I don't want to really say wine and dine, but, we're always like being treated real good, like we're real special people. And here we're really not, to them. We did. I mean, they must be looking at us sometimes as fools when we accept it. There was kind of a meet and greet, because behind the scenes they know that they can walk all over us, and they just want us to nod our head and say yes, to everything. But if you question them, that's when they get upset. And so that kind of went into effect where we started to question. And I learned this from Mount Graham, because again, Mount Graham was before Oak Flats, So anyway, so when we passed the resolution, man, they were pissed. The representation from Arizona that was in Washington, they were really upset. And then they start to expose gradually a lot of people who were involved in this, And so we fought it hard when I was on the council. And then I ran for chair, and that was a part of my platform. That the tribe will begin to protect its water, its air, its land, its inherent rights and indigenous rights and its religious rights, because we never forfeited that. The land was taken away and so forth, but our true identity, I always believe, we had never forfeited that.
No.
And I would hear people, the elders at that time, the majority, would always say, stand up, we need to protect this, protect that. They took this away from us, they took that away from us. And so in my team, when I was chair in 2005, is when you're not only looking at the problems within the reservation, but looking at outside of how the outside economy affects the inside of our economy, and then also looking at federal laws that how it denies us. And I think some of your listeners who are Native Americans who live on the reservation, we're on leased land. So if you learn more about that, you see really poor opportunities.
Yeah.
And and the dependency is a total dependent on the tribe of whatever your tribal leadership is going to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way the United States will do anything is through your tribe. Because on Mount Graham, Ola Castador, the late Ola Castador, and I was a young man, we went to Washington, and we're talking about Mount Graham.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the heated discussion, the guy was named Colby, Senator Colby from Arizona. Ola hands him the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And then he reads the resolution because at that time the tribe opposed, what was happening on Mount Graham. And then he looked at Ola Castador and asked her, are you a chairman, vice chairman, council? And she says, no.
Mm-hmm.
And then he turned to me and said, are you any of that? I said, no. And I always remember he threw our resolution on the ground and said, this meeting's over. I said, I only speak to tribal leadership. Don't you even know how it works? He said, get out of my office. So
Wow.
me and Ola Castro were kicked out of the office.
Wow.
And I was stunned, and Ola was stunned. We're looking, we thought our resolution meant something. Well, it did in so many ways, but the person or the people that should have been there was tribal leadership.
Yes.
And so we went back and researched that and found out that as tribal members, we fall under tribal government leadership. The United States will not speak to us directly. The only way they'll speak to us is through our tribal leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, when it comes to elections, it's important that who you elect, because they need to understand that
Yeah.
they carry the future of all the people in the palm of their hands. We're not like people who live in Globe, Miami, Superior, or in the state of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that freedom that these guys have directly to Washington. Our freedom goes through our tribal leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the day I learned, that people in Washington don't have to meet with you if you're just a tribal member.
Yeah.
So anyway, so in 2005, I had all that experience. So
Yeah.
I looked at, many of the Native American cases, and I realized that, we always bond with other organizations off the reservation. And when we go to trial, they always find a discrepancy on them, and then we lose the case.
Yeah.
So in the case of Mount Graham, Ola did, a lot of our medicine people, man, they did a tremendous job speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But when the ruling came, they ruled on the other entities that were involved in the court case.
Okay.
And that's what hurt our case. So they never really decided on the spiritual part.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that going into Oak Flats, that
Mm-hmm.
it's going to have to be a spiritual fight, on a historical, since time immemorial, that.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the environmental stuff, they own that.
Yeah.
They can get their own expert against your own expert. And if you don't have one that's well knowledgeable, you're going to lose in court,
Yeah.
So it's a known fact. So, and then plus the Ninth Circuit Court is a really bad court for Native Americans in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those factors you're up against. So again, when I was tribal leader, then the United States knew they had a fight with me,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a fight with our tribe.
Right.
And so from that point, some of my counsel who went to Washington started to get heckled by senators.
Yeah.
And then they would come back and say, Chairman, they're upset with us. They're
Mm-hmm.
upset with us, So then I started to go to D.C., and then that's when the threats came,
Mm-hmm.
that if I didn't bike off, that the tribe would lose this or that.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of backdoor meetings that were going on, and there was a lot of threats going on. But I stood my ground. But I remember there was a point in time there that I know some of my counsel were afraid to be with me, because that could mean that if our own tribal members are not understanding how this works, which they don't, a lot of them don't, they could lose their election.
Mm-hmm.
And what they weren't realizing is that what happened in Mount Graham and what happens in Oak Flat really dictates the future of our children.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to control the economy. And you're talking about chemical waste, you're talking about devastation, you're talking about climate changes. So how can our tribe exist in the economic world when they're destroying the economic possibilities, through this kind of frontier of mining? I mean, that's always been their goal. So anyway, so when it came right down to, because I was a chairman from 2005 to when we started 2010, So all those years was teaching Congress, and and being a leader. That meant that what happened to me in Ola didn't happen to me anymore because I was a leader now, and so they had to listen to me. And so we were educating Congress all that time about the pros and cons, and we actually had the Forest Service on our side. Tonto National Forest was on our side because they were telling congressional leaders that this was not a good deal, it's a bad deal. All this disaster will come from it, and then especially it being exempt, and the cheapest mining and so forth, and the water situation, all this was really bad. So it was pretty, we thought that it would be over. I thought it'd be over.
Yeah.
And then when I left office, Terry Rambler became the new chairman, and then my district put me back in as a write-in as a district councilman. So
I remember that. Yeah.
So I came back again. I had like about a 3 months break, I guess. Then the district, they put me back as a write-in. So I came back, and that's when Paul Gosar again made the attempt to, not again, that was the first time he put it on the floor to get the total exemptions, to have the House and the Senate, because he was in the House, but it failed. We were able to get 3 Republicans, again with the Democrats, and it failed. They did not get the land, because they wanted full exemptions. It wasn't until the following year, 2014, when the snake finally popped his head.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say snake. I'll say the gopher popped his head out of the hole. And that was Senator McCain. And we did not know Senator McCain, the late Senator McCain, was behind the whole thing. And that's when he put it in a late night rider, a must-pass bill, the National Defense Bill, with 1 hour before, and it passed. So to me, I don't take that as we lost. We were cheated. Everybody was cheated. The land was cheated. The mount, this place of sacredness was cheated. And so the following weeks when I went back, I talked to all these other Democrats and Republicans that were always supporting the tribe, that it was a bad deal. And what they told me was that that's when John McCain met with them and advised them that they were not going to get their projects within their state. Because what everybody's got to remember is John McCain was a very powerful man in the country.
Yes.
And so not only was he threatening the tribe, but he was threatening, even his colleagues. And so they just had to turn their back, because they needed those projects passed for their state. And so what a lot of people don't know is not that I didn't do enough. I mean, there's a lot of ugliness behind this, because you got to remember, people out there got to remember is that the United States created tribal governments, and they fund a big portion of the tribal government, and from health to education to so forth, that you're really in the palm of their hands, and it was a disaster, and that's the reality of it. It's just really bad behind the scenes.
So the bill, that defense bill, is what I heard is like 100 pages or maybe less. I mean more, but an hour before it gets voted, I mean, who's gonna read through the whole bill?
Oh,
I mean, who's gonna even see that? I mean, like we always say that the Oak Flat bill can't pass on its own, because when I read the articles too, like you were saying, a lot of the Superior residents were against it. I mean, they were all like, no, this is not a good idea. Like, we're going to lose Oak Flat. We're going to lose our water. We have all this, scenery here. And then Resolution Copper must have got in with the money. And then just maybe like 5 years later, like, this is the best thing we need. We need this copper mine to help our economy. But before that, it was like, this is a bad deal. So again, like we always say, it was capitalism again, like, they bought off a lot of people, to say, oh yeah, this is good for us, to have this mine.
Yeah, so when you go back and look at the National Defense Bill, I mean, that's all our military services, and nobody wants to fight that, because the veterans will be really upset at any congressman that goes against, because they're going to question Oak Flats. So it was a smart thing that John McCain did. And then on top of that, it wasn't only the National Defense Bill, there was a lot of good other projects in the United States that was added to it.
Yeah.
And so John McCain made sure that, he dug a deep hole and stuck, the transfer of land into it as a must-pass bill.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why I say, we didn't lose the case, or lose that in the political world. We were cheated from it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, where the other big concerns, not only the religious side of it, but the other big concern was the CAP water that comes through Hoover Dam, through Phoenix, and real groundwater. And those are the crises that we're facing right now, because the mine is going to get real groundwater. So those who are selling the water to Resolution Copper, it's real water. And they're doing the exchange with cap water, which is the CAP. And that's unsure water, because that really depends on, Colorado and the
Right.
mountains, and how much goes into Hoover Dam and how much will go into the Phoenix area, Tucson, however far it goes. But that's the real crazy thing. And that's what was going to be another big disaster that will come to the Phoenix metropolitan area and areas that have CAP, because once the mine uses up all, groundwater and contaminate them forever, then what do we really have? So the state of Arizona is going to depend on what happens in Colorado and all the upper snows that, come through Hoover Dam. And that was too big of a gamble. And that's why so many people were against it. But again, it goes back into the political play and, why was the United States after this? And money talks, with as much money, Rio Tinto, BHP, with Resolution Copper buying off everybody, but really buying off their spirit, because they lost connection with the greatest gift that God gave us, these things that, sustain life.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go on relying on what's going to happen in the future, and the way climate changes is hurting us now. And here, these places gave up real groundwater to Resolution Copper. It's crazy.
I always say too, like even in the valley, like you're saying in Phoenix and Scottsdale, like you can't have grass in your yard. There's laws saying you only gonna have rocks because of the water. So there's a lot of things that the city and the Arizona State know we're low on water. But yet again, we're still going to go for the copper mine that's going to take all that water from us.
Yeah, no, and that's why you have other organizations like Biological Diversity. Those guys, they're kind of arguing on developments, and there's other people that are being suppressed on their voices about arguing about new developments, because there's no control, and they are continuing to build, and there's hardly any water. And now you got a lot of big manufacturing corporations coming into Arizona. Same thing there, and I don't know, like I was saying in your last show, that they talked about Arizona being a wasteland. So somewhere in this country has to be a wasteland, and that's why I get a kick out of all these people who are running for Arizona. They don't even care. Then not one of them are talking about the protection of Arizona's sustainability for everything. It's about,
they'll lose votes.
Yeah, it's about immigrants, and
they'll lose votes.
Yeah, and just talking about how you dress, how you look. That's their platform, and it's amazing, because this government system is their government system, and yet they're not even using it to the fullness of the benefit of the people, and because they don't care. But again, just going back to when the bill was passed. I was hated. I was really hated for stepping in front of the United States for what they were doing. But as we move forward, the fight continued. But when I lost my mother, she's always been there for me, and my as they say, your backbone. I was up for re-election, and I remember my whole family, my whole, people that supported me from my district was all there. And, people were sitting there and eating. It was my turn to speak. And then I just told the people that I'm stopping my campaign. And I just remember it was a complete silence. And I told them that, that I'm going to retire and I'm going to stop. And there's two things behind that. You know, I was telling my older brother, Paul, who's no longer here, I was telling him that, because he asked me, he goes, man, I can't even eat my food now. So what'd you do? What'd you say? You know,
Yeah.
is that we're all like, did he say that? And because I went straight to my older brother and I told him, I said, I said, you know, Mom passed. I said, I got to find myself now. I got to find my own voice, you know, because my mom was always there with me. And,
Right.
and now I got to find even though I was an older man, you know, you know, she was my rock. She was the past, you know, helping me look to the future. And so I had to find myself. So I just told him that I need this time. But in finding myself was finding my voice. And I realized at that time that I had more power to battle these issues that we're talking about, not being a chairman.
Yeah.
You know,
you can focus on one.
Yeah. And I would tell the chairman and the councils that, hey, let me say the things that you can't say. Because I've been there before. You know, I've been council for a lot of years. I've been the chairman. And I know that, you know, the United States created this. And I know that you have to kiss butt to them. I know you have to treat them like, you know, like royal people. And, you know, with your lobbyists in D.C., they tell you not to say this or say that. And then when they write your speech before the committee, it's always praising them, you know. And I remember our lobbyists to be upset with me because I would just fold up her paper and throw it in the basket and look at her and say, no, I'm going to tell them the truth. So all the time that I spoke in D.C., you know, I was really telling them how the reservation and where they lied to us. And so when I got out, like I said, when I retired, I found my voice and I, you know, I didn't want our tribe to hold us either, that don't be a part of suppressing your own people from our own government, you know, the United States government. So I'm really grateful, you know, to the leadership that we have in San Carlos, because they've been very supportive and really working with us. And, you know, I got to give them a lot of credit for that, because a lot of tribal governments don't do that, you know.
Right.
And I'm real appreciated to our tribal leadership, because they do care. You know, they do care about their people, because they're letting me do what I'm doing.
Right.
Even though, you know, because, again, it goes back to me sitting with them and telling them that, let me say the things that you can't say. Let me say the things that we're afraid to tell the United States. Let me fight them. And again, you know, I got to say I'm real appreciated to them, you know, that they trust me in that way.
In every tribal government, in every tribe, there's always someone against you, right? I know my dad was like that when he was chairman. And so, like, with this Oak Flat, we have people here in St. Carlos that are for the mine. And there's some council people, I don't want to name any names, so I'm not sure who they are, that are for the mine and are upset with you because you are stopping maybe their money, maybe they're getting paid under the table. There's some that work for Resolution Copper, that drive around the trucks, you know, that try to hire people, they get them involved. How bad does that look for us when Resolution Copper looks at us and sees us like inner fighting, or, you know, like, how bad does that look for us? And to the public too, that, oh, well, you know, you are getting money, you know, you guys got money, there are people against you guys. So not all you guys are on the same team.
Well, you know, when I look at it from, I mean, I guess there's two ways of looking at that from perspectives. There's one as the way you describe, you know, and then the other is if you put yourself in the non-Indians' shoes. So if you look at it from the non-Indian shoes, they know how they conquered us.
Yeah.
You know, they know that. And so there's two ways of looking at it. You know, so if I go, you know, to the non-Indians and I listen to them, they apologize of creating this division. They apologize for what they did to our first people. And they apologize to see that it still exists today by divide and conquer. So I guess what I'm saying is that when they look at me, they're like, wow, you're like standing up in Apache. You're like what our ancestors met back time.
Right.
You know, man, it's an honor. And here, these are people who are with the corporations, you know, or with the politicians.
Yes.
And they go, you know, they're really proud, you know, to meet me. But then on the other side, for those who work for these corporations, they're like saying, we're sorry what we did to them. So,
Yeah.
so I come back and I'm like, how can I be angry at them, because, they're not looking at from how Resolution Copper is looking at them, how the politicians, like the white people, how they're looking at them. They have a different demeanor, in their eyes about these people. So I'm like, wow, that's more than what I can do. I'm not going to even touch that, because they're already being degraded by these people. And even in the town of Globe, they say, God, how embarrassing. How come, they don't stand up with you? The Indian people are important. The Indian people, we thought they believe in God. They believe in the earth. They believe in the water, And then when they see this happening, they have a whole opinion themselves. So I just leave that, I'm not even going to play with that because at least, people like us who are standing up, we're not laughed at. We're respected. Even though it's a hard road, we're respected. So, my mother always told me, know who you're talking to, know the person, know where they came from, know how they grew up, And she said they'll help you. And what she meant by that was that, coming back to myself here and looking at my tribal members, unfortunately things happen, like in the time of the takeover and the time of where our families had to be, there just weren't good decisions that were made. And then on top of that, they were suppressed, and to do what they needed to do to survive. And I always go back to the military records, and there's even some movies about it, that when the people turn on the people, even their rifles and their guns were taken, and they weren't even put in places like Sedona, and they're still here with me, so they're still treated the same. And so they never got anywhere. I think that's something that they need to look at, that we have to have one voice, because we're all cheated, regardless of what we defended or either you didn't. We're all cheated. And so I tell myself, do I have time to waste with that or not? So I've learned in my life that I'd rather go for the head, meaning corporations, meaning the government. I don't have time to argue or to talk about this and that with the other ones, because unfortunately, they probably weren't raised the way, a lot of people who are defending the land, the water, and so forth, weren't raised, and I know there was a lot of simulation still going on, and everybody wants an easy life, and everybody wants the prosperity of the American dream, whatever that is, but really, having friends, having freedom with the earth, freedom with who you are is really what makes you happy and makes your spirit happy. And I've learned that we're all suppressed, and when you come from a suppressed area, you're gonna jump, and quite a few of them jump into the wrong direction because they're suppressed, and they may think that, I can't live going to the river, and I can't go hunt a deer. I can't, I got to live this other way, else I'm gonna die. I don't know what goes through their mind. But I just think my mother used to tell me, just remember, at least you don't wake up like them. And I think those were like really important, because I guess what she was really explaining that we all learn where greed comes from. And when greed comes in, then uncertainty comes in, and then you lose focus, because all you see is the corporate world, that you have to make it, you have to make it, you have to make it, and all those ugliness comes with it. But there's somewhere, I hope that they come to where enough is enough. But again, for the workers who work for Resolution Copper, I have no hate, nothing for them. That's not my place. They have to make that choice, whatever choices they're going to make. And again, like I said, even those who talk bad about me, it's okay, because my mother used to say, no matter who we are, we all sin. And there's this little black bag in you, and And when you die, that's the bag that God will open and judge you for, your good deeds and your bad deeds. But if people here judge you and they say all kinds of awful stuff, all it does is that their hands go in and they take my sins and they put it in their bag because they judge me, and I'll have less. Now they're going to have to answer, why did they do, God's work, And so I look at it like that. That's how the old people used to look at it. That's why you have to be very careful. So, rather they throw fingers at me, yell at me, I mean, that's okay. It's all right. And then rather they talk down to me, that's fine. And then, I just feel bad for them when they're out there, promoting and pushing, because they're really promoting death, to the Mother Earth. And these are female places, so you could just kind of imagine that, they support a place where it's prying open a female. Yeah. And, and we're, as Indian people, we're taught you don't do that, because these are places that we're not supposed to go. But, I can only tell them what was important in the religious sense of who we are, and how they want to take it from there. That's them. But I'm okay, and like I said, I'm going after the head of the whole thing. Right. I'm going after the neck, and that's these corporations who are destroying the greatest gift God gave us.
I think it's always hard for me to explain, because there was an article a while back too. There was another tribal member that was talking about holy ground, and he was talking about how holy ground shouldn't be at Oak Flat. Holy ground belongs in St. Carlos. And I always tell people, in St. Carlos, not everybody is holy ground. Like holy ground, there's holy ground people, and there's different areas. Yeah. So anybody from St. Carlos, they're not all of them are holy ground people. So just having this person say, where holy ground should be, is like, I don't think anybody should talk about where holy ground could be. I mean, I could put holy ground wherever I feel it should be. And is it hard to explain to people, like, the holy... I mean, I don't want to explain too much on here because I know holy ground is very sacred, but do people understand that, like, holy ground is... So there's the cultural Oak Flat itself, but then there's our there's our holy ground. So, like I'm saying, like, a lot of people think all Apaches are holy ground. And I was just trying to explain to them, but I don't know how to explain that to them, in a sense. Because, we got clans, there's Chiricahua, there's Tonto, there's Pinal. I mean, there's so many Apache clans here. It's hard for me to explain to them about holy ground.
Again, when it comes back to our people, it's really no different where even in the non-Indian community with their Bible, when they say, when two or more people gather, the presence of God is there. Yeah. And so I grew up with the same thing, where people pray. It's important, But I also grew up with the fact that there are certain places that God touched. Just like when we talk about Mount Sinai and all these other places of importance. It's the same thing here. I don't get it sometimes why they think God never touched on this side. God has touched here where he's put special things. And so when people want to make judgment, it saddens me, because we're not in that place to do that. And you insult, the Creator, and again, it's some sort of sin that is created, and it's sad when they do that. And what's really funny is, like, just speaking about me, I hear these critics from certain people. But yet when I come back into San Carlos and I'm in Bashas or the post office or anywhere else, or even in Globe, if I run into them, they all say, "Hey, hi, hey." We support.
I always see people happy to see you. Yeah, I've never seen anybody yell or be mad at you. I always see everybody happy to see you.
Yeah, I mean, and if anybody had a concern, it was a discussion, But never ever has anyone said to me in my face that that we're wrong and really degrade it. But behind my back, they do it.
In articles, they do.
In articles. But to confront, they never have. But there's a lot of factors involved. Like I was saying, that I grew up in holy ground. I grew up with the old people, and my great grandmother. I mean, not my great grandmother. My grandmother was the oldest of the Logans, which was March Logan, one of the oldest one, and they tied in with Sally Johns, and right down to my uncle Abraham and so forth. There's a complete tie with us and how I grew up. And my grandmother used to take me to Holy Ground. So I used to hear all these ones talk. But then, these young ones never come ask me, are those that were running around as teenagers, now they're holy people, I'm like,
yes, I know.
And some of those are the ones that making the remarks, and I remember them when I was growing up, and they forget, that a lot of these people forget we knew what they were like. And that's why my mother used to say it was so important that, from the time you're born, to the time that you're going to do things, that you have good, leadership in front of you, with people helping guide and then you making the decisions and so forth. So I kind of feel like that's how I grew up with those people around me. And yet those who didn't do that, they're the first ones criticizing and saying things. But it's okay, because I know them. I know who all these people, I know their backgrounds. I know who they are. So that's why they won't confront me. But for me, going back to Holy Ground, they told me that this would lead us back to the old way, and that this was a special gift that was given to us from the Creator, but it was to hold the people at that time from killing themselves, because nobody wanted to be here on the reservation. There were so many things that were happening, and so the people themselves inside were praying for a new day and a hope of a better tomorrow and a hope to go home. And a lot of these younger ones don't know that. They don't know what these older people were saying. And then some of these people were making, remarks, which is very few, but in their younger days, they were never there. I'd never seen them. So I don't know how much these older medicine men would really rely on them, to tell them. Maybe they didn't know that they're going to do better later, but, they weren't going to be around to see it. But they needed to, say these things. So it wasn't just to me, it was to, like I had people like Ernest Victor, Ola Castledor before she left, and other people that, a lot of these medicine men talked to us that this will lead us out, and sure enough, it became the central of everything. And it's led us back to the sacred places, and now it's time for the old ceremonies, to people to reconnect, and like what we're doing. There's a lot of sunrise dances now. There's a lot of massages. There's a lot of sweat lodges that are going on that has returned. But just to be back where God touched the place, every place is sacred, but there's certain places that God touch, and these are the ones that are important for us to save. But it's unfortunate, but that's how it is. And if I would have listened to those people, we won't be in this critical court case that we're in to save so many things on this earth.
And when we're saving Oak Flat, and I always tell everybody about Oak Flat, like, it's not just for us. Like, it's not, we're fighting. I always say my uncle is fighting it for all the Superior people, all the Valley people, because the water is going to be gone. And I always mention that, you could put away sacred, everything that we talk about that's very important to us. If you don't want to believe that, that's fine. Your water is going to be gone, and it's going to get polluted, and everything is going to get, cancer. A lot of natives, Apaches here and in Elam from my side, the Pomo tribe, died from cancer because of the mine. So it's always a critical thing to say, we're doing this for us, but we're also doing it for you too, that this fight is for not just us, it's for everybody that's here.
Yeah, if you go back to everything I've done, go back to even when I first started to speak, I guess, I never said it's mine. I never put claim. I said, this is yours, this is our mound. These are our special places, we need to take care of them. We need to invest who we are into these places. I've never once claimed they're mine, and I even learned, further than that these places of sacredness has touched a lot of other Native Americans. If you go back before the pioneer days and when we were just Native people here, you see that from the Aravipa people, Atam people, Yavapai people, Zunis, Apaches, it was a sacred place where we all conversed together. Everybody knew about the deities. So how am I going to say it's mine, or how am I going to say it solely belongs to the Apaches? No, when God has touched something of a spirit, it belongs to everybody. And now the newcomers, the new people who are here from the other side of the world, because these spirits are no different than the spirits on the other side. And that's one thing I learned, even young, that you don't own anything. If anything has to do with God, it belongs to everybody. We're caretakers of it. And so that's why I'm so happy to see different religious groups that are praying, are coming to a place that is sacred, where God can hear their prayer. And without too much conflicting things happening from people who make evil, or people who make things bad. So no, that's one thing that we need to continue to say to everybody, because once they say this is mine or those are yours, there's never going to be no unity, and this evil gets away with it, because then it's taught us ownership. We own it. It's mine.
Right.
And anything that may have happened to me in a religious sense, it belongs to everybody. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it's not mine. It's everybody's. We have to understand what God gave us, for all of us to care for. So whoever's going to be there with me at Oak Flats to help care for it, what God created, I don't care. Because they have a spirit no different than mine. They were created no different than me. So who am I to say, this is mine? And it's just, it's an unknown thing for me, I guess, and I feel bad when I hear that.
Do you know, like, right away, like, we talk about like the religious, the non-natives that come and help, from churches, and can you tell which ones? Because there's some religions out here, and sometimes they're out here on a lot of reservations that tell you not to do all that. They tell you to stay with the church and not to don't go pray to the river, don't go do your dancing, to stay here, stay with the church. Don't do that. That's evil. But then your group that you talk to don't seem like they're like that kind of group. I don't know if the group if they're Christians or they're just religious people. So is there a difference between like religion and the religious people and then the Christians? Because I know when you say Christians, that's when people are like, I don't know, I don't want to get too involved with Christians. But then there's the religious people, and like the people that I met from you seem really cool about all this stuff, all about the environment, about the trees, about the mountains. Is there a difference? Can you tell?
I guess I can say before Mount Graham, I could really tell the difference. And I guess I can say, looking back at those days, it was kind of camouflage, meaning that I probably wasn't too right, because I couldn't really, I probably didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
But as I got older, and went beyond the reservation lines, I found out that the preaching on the outside the reservation is a little different than the inside of the reservation. And I was kind of like, well, how come they say this in the res and you say this out here, And then it pushed me again to the federal policies, where the first churches that came into reservations were really working with the federal government and really pushing assimilation, and, like, in other words, spank the Apaches out of us.
Right.
And
put soap in our mouth if we speak Apache.
So that church came in different, and they really played a psychological effect on our people.
And they're still here.
They're still here. And so they're surprised, and I asked them, do you guys talk to the churches in San Carlos? And the answer is no. These guys keep away from where they originated, and I'm like, wow, so there's still some federal guidelines, I guess, that they still follow, churches within the reservation. But for me personally now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my tribal members that are preachers, they're really the first ones to the rescue, I would say. Um, they've done a lot of praying for me,
Mm-hmm.
tribal members who are preachers,
Yeah.
and all the work I do. And they even come sit in my house and spend 2-3 hours because they find what I'm doing in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want to make sure that I know that it's in the Bible, that use this. So where I'm at officially today is the tribal members who are preachers have been really important in my movement because they see, that being Apaches,
Mm-hmm.
I think, they know and they see, and them too probably was waiting for a day like this
Mm-hmm.
where there's only one God,
Mm-hmm.
So they're able to say what they want to say and real supportive. And I find them praying for me more,
Right.
more. And then, but you have the hardcore churches that are here,
Mm-hmm.
that don't do that.
Mhm.
They still push, that the Apache way is an evil way, and you got to
Yeah.
turn yourself to the Christian way. So that still exists. But then what I also find is they're what do you call them? They're church members. They're they're still inside who they are, and seeing that what I'm doing consistently is important to them because then they keep tie with their ancestral ways,
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess for me, growing up in St. Carlos, I see that, and I can say what I'm saying because I'm experiencing it firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like the other day I ran into one of the preachers, and he seen the things that we put on Facebook, and he said to me, "Hey Wendsler, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you in my church."
Mm-hmm.
So, oh man, you know, Montel, that means a lot to
Yeah.
me because of what you just said. Your question, because it does take me back to those days when, man, it wasn't like that. And a lot of the churches, congregations, they support Oak Flats,
Mm-hmm.
and I know they understand when it comes to water, air, wind, that God created it.
Mm-hmm.
And how can they turn their back on it? Because that's God's creation,
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to see that. But some of the hardcore churches here, they still, they still
Yeah.
stay away, or they do their
Mhm.
own thing, and they
Mhm.
preach their own thing,
Mhm.
And then I well, as long as they don't bother me, as long as
Yeah.
they don't get in my way, I'm fine
Yeah.
with them. I mean, it's just the people,
Yeah.
I worry about them, but I think what I do is really help them see, clear, and remind everybody that God created all these things for all of us, no matter
Mhm.
what.
I know personally for me, and I don't let it bother me, but I know which one of my relatives is in those kind of churches are my relatives that are not at the dance. So sometimes that's how I can tell. I could tell, like, if one of my cousins are in a church because this person I don't see is not at the sunrise dance or at the, at the sweat. So I try to like think to myself like, well, as long as they're doing okay, as long as they're doing good, then that's fine. And they, so that's the new thing for me, trying to like accept, yeah, as long as they're happy, they could pick any religion they want to be in. But I always know that for an Apache or, for whatever tribe you're from, like us, we're as Apache, like, I could be Mormon, I could be Lutheran, I could be Catholic, but I also still got to be Apache. That's in me. And so, hopefully, that things will get better, as time goes on with these churches here on the reservation.
Yeah, and you're right. It really comes down to that personal choice,
Mm-hmm.
but also, as parents and leaders, we have the responsibility to put the truth out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the truth is out there, then you can make better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when colonization started and when they put us as prisoners of war, I mean, they really took control over that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're in an era of really putting the answers of what happened in the past out there, but sometimes it's real difficult for them to listen to it because they were brought up one way,
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, if it helps them, and they're maintaining in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
then I just kind of like leave it because
Yeah, let it
they're
be.
happy. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I just hope that they understand though
Mm-hmm.
that you can't live without water, you can't live without
Yeah.
air,
Yeah.
you can't live without the earth.
It can be toxic.
Yeah,
Land. Yeah.
and that's where no matter how we're taught in what religion, that if we know God,
Mm-hmm.
then we have to protect those things from those who are trying to destroy it, and that's what's happening here. But that's why I was saying, like I'm really proud of some of the Christian groups here, or religious groups and preachers, that are praying for me, because they see that, and they see it's tied to God, and they see me doing like God's work. I guess it's kind of like the Poor People's Campaign is the same thing. They see the work here resonating throughout the country, that we're really bringing people together, under that one spirit, because so many people can say so many different things, and that's always been like the dividing line, the territory. But I feel like, the real religion of Mother Earth and God is getting through, and that's why a lot of people are coming together with us, because I don't judge anybody, it's not my place, but these are important things that God made, we need to keep it and not.
Yeah.
So I think that's really has resonated across the country, and I see it here, with San Carlos, with myself personally, that I'm just real happy when they pray for me, Even in one long trip I was going, it was going to go speak in Washington again, and my daughter Vanessa was saying, Dad, should we get somebody to go to pray for you and everything? Then I just told her, I said, Vanessa, I said, if it's meant to be, I said, these people who pray, these people, who believe in God, I said, they'll know, that I need to be prayed for. I said, they'll come. And I was leaving, like, I had to get to Phoenix early for the flight. I think I was leaving like around 5, and then about 11 o'clock, Christian guy came, preacher, and told me that he's been dreaming, and it sent him over here.
Yeah.
And then he prayed, and after he prayed for me, he left. And I looked at Vanessa. I said, see, I said, sometimes you don't know where it comes from, but I'm okay now, because I said, we're fighting the one evil. What we got to remember, I said, is there's those that are going to recognize we're fighting the greatest evil that has destroyed the other side of the world and here. And so that's our focus. I said, so those who know God and those who know the greatest gift, and God will speak to them, the Spirit will talk to them. And sure enough, I said, look who came. I said, I got prayed for. I said, I don't need to go anywhere. I said,
Yeah.
So it was awesome. It just tells me, it leads me, that we have to stay in this way, to get everything in a good way from the people.
That's what I think, when you're my age, like, I'm in my 40s, and I try to not let things bother me. I try to think positive, like how you do today. And like I hear like other podcast shows where they say, how does the Sunrise Dance connect to the Book of Mormon? And and it's like, maybe I shouldn't be listening to stuff like this because it gets me upset. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I had a friend of mine tell me, just let it be. That's as long as they're happy, like, let it be. And I'm like, man, I feel like sometimes I have a little fire in me, and then sometimes I have, like, I have you, my uncle, that can say, don't worry about that, and so I'm glad that, I have you, and like, and my mom tells me the same thing. And so, yeah, about my age, so I do get a little fired up on certain things, especially when it comes to our culture and religion. The Christian religion is just something that I try to, like, not let it get to me, like, as long as they're happy, as long as they're supportive too. I just try to let it go. But I'm sure maybe you felt that way when you're my age too. But when you probably had your mom, keep you on the ground level also at the time too. But that's kind of like the point I'm at right now. So it's just hard for me to, I'm glad to, I have you and the elders to give me advice on stuff like that.
Yeah, and and adding to that, I think we're in a time where, like what you're doing, this broadcast, you're concreting my voice, my words, And that's really like creating the blueprint. And I think a
Mm.
lot of them before us, you know, we probably didn't know how that would be manageable, you know.
Yeah.
And I think now in this time and era, I've talked to a lot of people, older people, that we really got to create the blueprint, be
Mm.
truthful, you know,
Mm.
and that had never been done,
Mm.
is to be truthful. And I think when we're truthful, we're not going to only help ourselves, but we're going to help everybody in this country. And again, you know, I know it's called a stronghold, but man, to me, it's religious people. I mean, traditional people,
Mm.
cultural people, people who know Mother Earth, you know, and know what God created,
Mm.
you know, why we were created, what our purpose is. And I'm happy because it's really, you know, really working its way through a lot of obstacles to get to
Mhm.
where it should get, so that the younger generation know what they're about and know what they should do. Because I have to go back to when I was growing up. My mother took me outside and she says to me, you know, son, there's going to be a lot of people going to say a lot of different things
Mhm.
in your life. You know, they're going to say this and say that and say this and that. She goes, but what I want you to do right now, she goes, use your eyes, look.
Mhm.
And then that's when she pointed out the mountains, the trees, and
Mhm.
even the dogs, the reservation
Mhm.
dogs walking by, you know.
Yeah.
She would say, that's real.
Mhm.
That's what you got to understand. That's what your
Mhm.
purpose is. If those are gone,
Mhm.
you're gone.
Mhm.
You destroyed what God gave us.
Mhm.
People are going to say many different things and confuse you. But look at this. So she was really like making
Mhm.
me look at Mother Earth
Yeah.
and say, without that, there's no life, no spirit.
Yeah.
Your job is to take care of that.
Mhm.
And again, you know, I feel like that's really resonating all over what we're doing.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really true, you know, a true spiritual road to what God is, you know, and that's why it's so important, you know. And so anyway, I'm happy, you know, I got those really teaching and just being who I am, and just kind of making my way through all these obstacles that I face all the time.
I like the, you know, I hear a lot of people, a lot of tribes, and a lot of, you know, a lot of other nonprofits that native. They always talk about like connection to the land, you know, connection to Mother Earth, connection to, you know, water, and so I think last year we were in Oak Flat, and I felt like connection is kind of like the wrong word, you know, because there's more to that. And so when we were at Oak Flat, I think it was in February, you were speaking to, I think it was the church camp up there, and you said that you related to this land, you related to the animals, and I thought like that's what I'm looking for, like, you know, like we're related to this mother, because we're calling it Mother Earth, like we're related to Mother Earth. It's more than just a connection, and I felt like I hope other natives would feel that soon, because when we say we're related to Mother Earth, it's a deeper protection. Like, you know, like for instance, me and you, like we're related. You're my uncle, and I'm your nephew. You know, I watch you. You're my family. I make sure nothing happens to you, and you do the same. So for us saying, when you said that day that you related, that meant a lot to me, because I felt like that's more protection, you know, that we give to each other. Like we're related to the bear, we're related to the, you know, to the fox. We're not connected, you know, we're more related than anything. And I felt like hopefully that could come around more for us as indigenous people, that people can feel that we're related to Mother Earth, not connected.
No, it's so true.
Mm.
I, you know, when I pray, I say, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so just saying that, you know, like telling the Mother Earth that everything above it
Mm-hmm.
is my relative. I recognize it because Mother Earth gave birth to them too,
Mm-hmm.
and they're my relatives.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're saying, you know, wherever I go, the trees, you know, the animals, you know, seeing an elk, seeing a buffalo, places I go, seeing a salmon, you know, they're all my relatives, you know, and I treat them that way. And I put my hands in the water, you know, so that they know I'm here. I breathe in and out, you know, to let them know I'm here. You know, those kind of things, you know, even touch a tree, an old tree, a young tree, because they're my relatives. Just like you're saying, just like when you greet your nieces and nephews, and then they in return they give you that respect. There's that. I guess that's where that word comes in.
Yeah.
Finally, connection.
Yeah.
But you got to respect it first. You got to know that it's a part of you. It gives you life and we're supposed to take care of it. My mother, your grandmother, always, told me that, son, all of this is your family. They're your relative. Everyone, and if you're treated like that, they'll take care of you. But if you don't treat it like that, then they won't be there. And their spirit too. I mean, they know when to help you, when not to help you. They know. It's like it's funny. I have this friend down in Superior, and when I need to go take a shower, I go down there and take a shower.
Yeah.
And she was gone for a couple of days, and she has cats. So I went in, and there was a cat sitting on right when I walked to the bathroom. And he was meowing.
Yeah, meowing.
At me. And I go to take a shower and everything, and I pack up my stuff, and I come out of the shower, and he's sitting right there again, and I walk past him, and he's making all this noise, and then I'm going towards the door, and he runs after me. I'm like, hey, this cat never done it before,
Yeah.
So I turn around and I said, what? I said, are you upset with me because I came or what? It was, are you upset? I was talking to the cat, and then he looked, and he took off towards the kitchen, and then he turned around and he looked at me, and then he did that again, meow, meow, And I'm like, what? And so I don't know. And he walked me towards him, and when I turned the corner, there was a baby cat, and her head was stuck in this funnel.
Oh, okay.
And it was laying there, And so I got down there, and I had to find some grease, put it around the neck, and I slowly, and I didn't want to use a knife, but I was going to try that first, and I just kind of tilt the cat's head, and I pulled it out. And she wasn't getting enough air, so she laid there for a while. Then that cat was like licking her, and then she woke up and she got up, And anyway, it was like amazing, Yeah. I mean, and here these cats don't even know me, but
right.
But being, respectful to them. So when I left, and a couple of days later I came back, and normally when you come, all the cats that don't know you all scatter different ways, But anyway, when I came to the fence of the lady's house, that cat came up and met me at the gate, and that cat walked me to the house. So every time now when I go see her, that cat meets me.
Wow.
At the gate.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm so, how you say, I'm happy, I mean, that this cat, knows me, and that's my relative. And that's what I mean. If you pay attention, you can really converse with them. And that's to know that they're your relative.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's where my mother used to say, in the society nowadays, we just turn off the volume and don't want to see what's real. And that's why I go back to when she told me, look. And so when Resolution Copper, when I'm at Oak Flats, is pounding late at night, man, you hear the coyotes, and then even if you got your flashlight, you see animals moving because they're afraid of that.
Right.
And so, they know things, they're probably smarter than us.
Yeah. That's their area, and I always say, like, when we had July 4th, people with the fireworks, it's like all the creatures out there, especially in Arizona, everyone, all the relatives that we have out there. So I was glad that day when I was there to hear you say relative, because again, I was like, connection doesn't seem as strong a word for something like this. I just couldn't get put my finger on it at the time, but it's just something that I hope everybody understands, as we go with Oak Flat. But Uncle, I know you don't have much time, but I just want to go really quick over this Apache Stronghold prayer journey that's coming up. So it already started in July. You went to Washington, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's going to start over again on this. Today is going to start. You're going to go to you're going to hit like what, 15 different cities, areas. So.
Yeah.
So Thatcher's today, right?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you short today,
No.
yeah, 3 o'clock today, Sunday. I'll be heading out to Thacker Pass in Nevada,
Mm-hmm.
and we should arrive tomorrow. And we'll be having prayer ceremonies with Thacker Pass, because of what they're going through there too,
Mm-hmm.
with lithium and the fight that they're fighting.
Yeah.
But we've been in unity together. We built a relationship of what we're going through and what they're going through there, and how we're trying to help our people understand, and even going beyond that, of setting a new path of how we collectively should all work together.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, I leave there and I'm on to the Bay Area.
Yeah,
and
August 8th, you be in the Bay Area.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to that because we end up creating a lot of friends, from
Mhm.
non-natives to natives and religious groups, and
Mm-hmm.
so we'll be having a prayer ceremonial there with them.
In LA
Then,
on
yeah,
August 10th.
yeah. Then
Okay.
we'll travel down to LA, and we'll be in LA. Same thing. A lot of great people,
Mm-hmm.
natives and non-natives. I mean, so many people, and even immigrants. Where corporations are moving them out of their
Right.
urban homes and taking over the land. So I mean, yeah. So I'm looking forward, and with the Poor People's Campaign,
Mhm.
so many people involved there.
Yuma, Kachang.
Yeah, then we're gonna go down to Yuma,
Mhm.
and those guys are also fighting, and made some real good relationships with
yes.
the elders and some of the tribal leadership.
We ran with them not too long ago,
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, and so I'm excited because we're gonna all be laying down prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Then on
Tucson,
Tucson, and
August 13th.
yeah, would be with the Antams and Yaquis and non-Indians, and again, a lot of church groups.
August 15th, you back in Phoenix.
Yeah, well, August 14th will be my rest day at Oak Flats.
Oh,
so
yeah, okay.
anybody needs to get a hold of
Yeah.
me, I'll be at Oak Flats
Okay.
on the 14th, one day though, and then the next day, we'll be in Phoenix. And then same thing there, a lot of good organizations
Yeah.
and
The last
churches.
time I was out there, it was pretty good.
Yeah, then from there, the
Flagstaff.
16, I think, the Flagstaff,
Yeah.
yes. So we'll be there, then a stop in Hopi on the
First Mesa on
yeah.
August 17th.
17. So
They got a lot of stuff going on there, too, that people don't know about.
yeah, and so we'll be doing prayers with them, and then from there we'll be
Dene Gallup,
Gallup, and
August 18th.
Yeah, a lot of good friends there, Chiyazi, Anna Rondon, and,
Okay.
and Ed Bacente and others, that have been working with us, and be great to see them,
Mhm.
with family,
Yeah.
that are in the same situation and fighting uranium and
Oh, yes.
so forth, so tying up with them and being with them for years.
You got Albuquerque. So this is when you start kind of go east now. You're going to go to like Albuquerque,
Yeah,
New Mexico,
then-
August 20th.
Yeah, and then
And
same thing there, Pueblos and
Pueblo, Colorado.
yeah, and just making our way all the way to Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma on the 24th. Are you going to go
24th.
to any cultural land there or tribal land there?
Yeah, there's our team is working on tribal members in that area that
Okay.
have been with us during this time, and
Mhm.
again, their issues too.
Mhm.
And
St. Louis, Missouri, August 27th. One city I'm pretty surprised about is Lexington, Kentucky, August 29th.
yeah,
Yeah, what's going on over there? Do you know people there?
it's going to be several churches that have joined the case,
Okay.
and that will be amicus brief with us
Mhm.
against the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So great support coming out of Kentucky, and them understanding what all religions are facing based on this case.
Yeah.
So we'll be there in Kentucky.
I get a little worried when you hit some of these southern states, so that's good about. Those kind of states I kind of get worried about a little bit. But then we go to Montgomery, Alabama, another southern state. So I'm like, oh man, somebody's going to watch my uncle over there. So so those are the ones I kind of worry about, but
Yeah,
just a little bit. But
Yeah, and no, thank you for saying that,
Mhm.
because we do have a lot of support from the African Americans and
Mhm.
the unions, and I know. I mean, it has been mentioned to me that having security. So I've
Yeah.
never really had security before, but
Mhm.
I'm really grateful to those who are volunteering.
Mhm.
And so even any out there people listening, they want to volunteer.
Mhm.
That's great, because I don't have the resources
Okay.
to really go out and be like everybody else, but I know that what we're doing is really in the minds of everybody, because in this court case we could really change the future of America when it comes to land issues, you know. So and religious sites, and then how we're tied religiously, because it'll really give it some strength, you know, to protect these places, and that means that corporations are not going to like it. So
right. So then we go to Cherokee, North Carolina, September 1st, and then Winston-Salem.
Yeah, Winston-Salem.
On September 2nd, that's when you're going to start going right towards Washington, because you got North Carolina. Then you got Wake Forest, North Carolina, on September 5th. And then that's when you finally hit Washington, D.C. on September 8th. And you're filing on September 11th?
Yeah, September 11th. And what we're hoping in that, you know, if everybody can get a chance to go to our website and kind of be updated as because our schedule will be updated, you know, location, place, time, and but what I'm really hoping for is that I'm hoping I could bring 100 people with me, and everything we get in the East Coast is going to be a plus, you know, from natives to non-natives, and you know, people that will be able to bring their drums, or people that, you know, want to play a sacred item on this case, because it's really going to take a miracle. I mean, we're that close. In other words, when this started, you know, like a football field, you know, we started in this end zone, and the miracle is at the other end zone, and we had to get there, you know. So I really feel like we have jumped so many hoops, obstacles, and we're now on that 5-yard line. When we get to the Supreme Court and we give our case, now we're at the 1-yard line, and when they take the case, we're in the end zone, the miracle of them taking it, because it's a huge case and affects all Native people and all non-Native, and we're really going to see what the United States is going to say about spirituality in this country. So it's not going to just be towards us, but it's really going to dictate the future of how they're going to, when like Trump or anybody says, we're going to mine, we're going to take. And what I'm hoping America would understand, that means destroying our homeland. That means forever it's gone and contaminated, you know. I mean, they're not talking about they're talking about the pros, but not the cons, and the cons outweigh the pros.
And he's saying dig, dig, dig.
Yeah.
You know, so he's saying the word dig, which is dig into Mother Earth, you know. And
you know, and then when it comes to the new Green Deal, you know, it's like I keep saying, it's like these companies that make Coke, they know it gave people diabetes, and so they go for some kind of remedy, you know, the government, and they make Diet Coke from the same corporation. You know, why couldn't they have done that in the beginning? So here we are, the new Green Deal. If you look at the new Green Deal, it's the same companies that are going to do the new Green Deal. But it's kind of like, instead of Rio Tinto saying they're here in America, Rio Tinto, they create a subsidiary called Resolution Copper. But they're Rio Tinto.
So the same.
So when the new Green Deal start, all these companies who destroyed the land is just going to create a subsidiary with another name and off-throw everybody. You know? And so it's crazy. That's why you got to be well informed of how they do things, you know, because it affects all of us.
I think it's good that you go through the cities too, because right now you're doing it in a crucial time when it's voting season. So I think, you know, doing voting season is going to change a lot of people's perspective on probably how they vote, you know, when you're going, especially when you're going through the southern states, you know. And so and they know we're coming, you know. They know not just not natives, but non-natives are coming, you know, in a full force. Because let's go back to the case for a second. Is the United States, Rio Tinto, Resolution Copper, BHP is going to stand there to dismantle our religious ways. But with religious groups joining the case, now they have to tell us why they feel that this place is not holy. Then they got to tell all these churches why their words are invalid. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's a huge, big, that's the character of this country, the characteristics of going forward. What does it mean for our children? What it means with our relationship between heaven and earth. I mean, that's what's going to be at stake.
So that's why, we're telling people, you need to come, because this is about water, wind, air, and Mother Earth, and identity of all of us. Yeah, this is one case that reflects every one of us on Mother Earth. And as we were saying, all the things above it too, that is our relative. It's all going to be affected by it.
And with this tour, Uncle, like I was telling you this on the phone earlier, is if you could elaborate, is like how important it is to vote. Because I get a lot of people, especially natives, who say, I don't want to vote because I don't care for either candidate. And it's like, it's not just a presidential vote. In Arizona, like we just brought up earlier in the podcast, like it was your Arizona senators, your Arizona legislators that went after Oak Flat. So you have to vote who your senators are, even research your judges if you want to, because that's kind of where it starts from. And, in every state that a native is in, I think should vote, because, again, we're fighting this because of who got into office during that time where Oak Flat got passed. So, I mean, if you could just say, let people know that, we got to get out there and vote.
Well, I probably was one of them too.
Yeah.
I mean, cause I've been involved with this so long, and I have to come to terms that whether you're a Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. I tell people it's like who is auditioning to the corporations.
Yeah.
Who is sitting at the interview table, and the corporations are going to decide who they're going to elect. But we've let that happen too much. We need to begin to stand up and let our politicians know that this is done. That there's got to be the right people running for office rather than loyal to the Democrat and to the Republican. It has to be to the people. Now, I don't know if that's another third party or fourth party, to create, but what's crazy is that the people can do it. But if not, then you're in a situation of voting for the less evil.
Yeah.
And the less one that's going to harm, harm things. But also, we really need to be proactive. So, in other words, whoever we're going to support, we need to let them know consistently, because what they say is that the population doesn't let them know anything about what they want or what they need. It's the corporations telling them. And when the corporation gives the appearance that they're the ones electing them in, then of course they're going to respond to the corporations. But if the people respond, then they'll know that they're subject to the people. So we really got to be proactive, and we already know what Donald Trump is saying.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put the two together, it's like, oh man, Donald Trump he's not going to care. He's going to come in and he's going to destroy and do whatever he's going to do. But I think with the Democratic Party, there's a chance there for us to really send out our mission of what we would like to see her accomplish, and have them follow that mission. But even though it's the same thing, we need to do that to the Republicans too. We can't let them get away with what they're doing. But it really falls back on us. So I agree with you. I am going to vote, and I am going to, take that initiative. But also, I feel happy with what we're doing, because we're making that impact in the election. So it's the same thing. You're
going to a lot of Republican states.
Yeah,
during this tour.
Yeah. And so I'm going to hit, I'm going to hit the Republicans, and so there's a lot of, as I keep saying, there's a lot of different categories, a lot of different roads, and a lot of things that you need to be aware of in this crucial fight. So it's just not one particular area. You got to be well versed, and I think that's where I bring a lot of comfort to a lot of people on the Stronghold, is because I'm well versed as a Native American. Indigenous person, and building the path of a better tomorrow. So our case reflects that better tomorrow. So imagine if we win. I don't care what president's going to be in there. This new law is going to play effect to where they have to acknowledge the people and the spirit of Mother Earth. And that's why you could join this fight, because this fight represents you, and the future and the things that you worry about. Because if we try to change what's happening now, that's going to take forever. That's going to have to take a lot of work, But with this case, it's immediate fix to a better future.
Yeah.
Because this is who we are, all of us.
Yes. All right, Uncle. I know you got to take off today to Thatcher, but thank you for taking the time to talk, and I'll make sure that I get a hold of Apache Stronghold during the tour and get some updates and put it on the podcast as you guys are crossing America all the way to Washington D.C.
No, thank you, and then I just ask your listeners out there to keep us in prayer, because this is not an easy road. A lot of obstacles to face yet, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get it done, and again, it's as I was saying about a miracle. A miracle happens when all people pray. So,
all right, Uncle. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for listening. And we'll be back with some updates. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all for tuning into the Fight for Existence podcast. If you guys want to keep up with the podcast in general, what you could do is follow the social media account. The Instagram account is going to be Fight for Our Existence. Again, that's Fight number 4 Our Existence. Go ahead and give that a follow. And if you guys have any questions for us, or you guys would like to be on the podcast, in the Instagram there's a link. Go ahead and click that. No matter what kind of platform you guys listen to this podcast on, there's always that plus or that follow button. So go ahead and click that so you guys can get notifications when we upload our next episode. And if you guys are listening on Spotify, what you can do is go ahead and rate the show. And if you guys are only listening on Apple Podcasts, what you can also do is write a review for the show. Thank you all for tuning into the Fight for Existence podcast, and we will talk to you next time.